Um, the matchup in Tier 1, now, everyone know me. I want Sasha main. I like Sasha. Sasha forever. She's my waifu, you know. Now, when it comes to matchup, Auk versus Sasha is a recurring one because they are both popular at some extent. I think Auk is much more popular, but if you're a Sasha main, that matchup happens a lot. So this means Auk versus Sasha, I think it's very balanced because here's the thing: Auk has better units, but it will never have his super. And Sasha Market Crash is good because you can deny higher cost power and super. But here's the thing: you can only deny for a certain time. At some point you won't be able to fill your meter fast enough, and Black Wave will happen or Black Storm will happen at some point. So it's just a question of how can you benefit from your day-to-day and how fast can you take on COs. Now if you take a look to the other tier 1, as you mentioned, Sasha Mirror, it's not fun. It's really bad. I did a Sasha Mirror with no 2, and I think this video will be great when it will be uploaded because it will help people to learn more about Sasha. I think we had 2 different playstyles and I played much more Sasha than him, so we could see the difference between the both of us. Now I think the most fair fight you can have is Grit versus Sasha. Sasha power is not able to shut down snipe attack. Maybe you will shut it down once, but you won't be fast enough to shut it down twice. So this means Sasha doesn't really affect Grit, so most of the time in that matchup she will end up using Warbond because she won't be able to deny the power. It's too cheap. And the other thing is Grit has a really good day-to-day. He's really hard to use. That's the thing. He's really hard to use. Like, if he was easier to use, I think Grit would always stomp Sasha because having the indirect Grit it's kind of busted when you think about it, but people are just not really good, and that's Fog, so you need more unit to support your indirect. Now the other matchup is Sasha versus Javier. Oh my, this one is really hard. The moment there's a tower on the map, well, Javier is really good. He becomes mumbled with cheaper powers, and Sasha won't be able to always deny the power. And the smartest play with Sasha is to use Warbond against COs like Javier and Grit because their super are cheaper. Now of course if you can deny the super you will deny it, but sometimes you won't be able to because it costs too much stars. Now Javier versus Sasha, it's really hard for Sasha. She will need to win fast and she will need to overwhelm fast because the longer the game will be, the better Javier will become and the worse Sasha will become, because at some point Javier will get the power, and if Sasha loses building, she loses the game. She needs her building to work. That's her only way to keep her economy afloat and to work. Now we have the last tier 1 because I don't consider Storm. Okay, Storm versus Sasha is, I think, a fair one, I guess. No, actually no, Storm is just busted. It's a weird one because Storm day-to-day is good enough to compete with Sasha. You won't see Meteor Strike, but he doesn't really care because he doesn't care about terrain. So I think Storm versus Sasha, it's not going well for Sasha. It's not as crystal clear as, let's say, Javier or Vombolt because, well, Storm has weaker units. His defense is busted. His terrain is busted. But his offense is not quite there. So that's why it's harder to say if Sasha can win or not. She will have a hard time piercing and destroying Storm defense. And anyway, Storm can run away because he doesn't care about terrain. Now, the last matchup, Vumble versus Sasha, the one we got right now, right here. Even if we don't see Ex Machina in proper games, Vumble doesn't care. Vumble has broken units. He doesn't need the tower, he is good. And now we will speak about the map a little bit. There's no tower. So this means your Vumble is actually much more better than usual because there's no tower. I have no true way to pressure you. And yes, your units are a bit weaker because you also don't have that tower. But I'm Sasha. I need a little amp. And when I get my super, let's say I get my super in this case, I do normal damage, so I don't get that much value. If you got a tower and you get Warband, you can get a good value, but if you don't have a tower and you do Warband, you only get the normal buffs, and this means you do less money, less damage, less of everything. So I think Vumble versus Sasha, it's really, really hard for Sasha to overcome Vumble. So even if the map is large and Vumble is a bad pick, that doesn't mean he will lose, because he just hard counters Sasha and there's no tower, as I said, so Sasha will really struggle, and the best way she can actually do something is if she is able to capture several buildings and maintain these buildings, because if Vumble is able to capture Sasha's building, Sasha collapses and she cannot do anything anymore. So I think that summarized well Sasha versus Vumble. So we kind of foreshadow what will happen during this replay, but that was the point of speaking about the matchups. I still like a lot tier 1. Tier 1 is my favorite tier because Sasha is in it. Even if she's not amazing, like, I think she's in the lower part of tier 1, and the only reason why she's on tier 1 it's because she can deny other CEOs power. Like, if you take a look to lower tier like tier 2, Max has his chance because his extra firepower really helps him a lot. Even if I consider him a trash CEO, not fun CEO, well, he can still beat Sasha because he has extra firepower. Now, if you take a look, you will never see Winter Fury. It's 7 stars. Ox struggled to have Black Wave against Sasha, so imagine 2 extra stars. You will never see Winter Fury. If you take a look, Eagle, you will never see Lightning Strike. And Eagle has more chance than Olaf because he has a better day-to-day, but his day-to-day is nowhere near as good as Sasha because only air unit get the buff, and Sasha, her entire army get the discount because she got buildings. So now if you go to tier 3, it's even worse. If you go in tier 3, the only CEO that really stand a chance versus Sasha is Kindle. It's Kindle because her power is broken and it's 3 stars. That's the only CEO, because you will never see Drake Typhoon, and Drake Tsunami, it's not really great. It's a good power, don't get me wrong. It's a good power because it's global damage, but it's nowhere near as good as Typhoon. And he has weaker air unit, and Sasha doesn't care. Andy doesn't have a day-to-day, and forget it, he will never get hyper repair, or hyper upgrade, I should say. So that's the thing, that's why Sasha is tier 1. But even in her own tier, like, the most fair match you can have is Sasha versus Grit. And even there, Grit still has his chance because of his day-to-day. So I think I summarized enough tier 1 and Sasha and stuff. Anything you would like to add before I close that smaller clip?
No, I think that's a pretty good... you went over all the Sasha matchups pretty informatively, I think. And better than I could, because I don't play Sasha that often.